Hi, as you'll see that this is a little bit different setting than a lot of the videos that I tend to make for students, but I thought I would let you see what a Cisco router and switch looks like in person, because I know there's a lot of you that are taking your classes online and don't have the opportunity to see a physical device. So I wanted to point a few things out to you, and I'll do that in just a moment. So what we're going to look at is a Cisco router and switch. Now, when you're looking at your Cisco routers and switches, you'll see that there are various types. So what we're using is a layer 2 switch. Now, a lot of corporations use layer 3, and you'll see that we have the older layer 2 switches. And that is okay to get some exposure to those, because if you work for an educational system, you work for the government, a lot of times they tend to be way behind on upgrading their equipment. So I like to give students the opportunity to see various types of interfaces, various models of devices, so that you're familiar with that. Think about the transferability of skills. For example, if you configure a fast Ethernet interface, you should be able to configure a gigabit interface and apply the same knowledge to that. So in just a minute, I'm going to move my laptop around and let you see this up close, but I wanted to mention a couple of things to you. So it's a good idea to know what these devices look like. Unless you're completing an internship or you work in IT, you may not see these. Now, we've been using Packet Tracer, which is great, but it doesn't let you get to visually see some of the link lights or what the device looks like when you're actually plugging into the various ports on the device. Now, if you remember from your reading, when you boot up a Cisco device, it goes through a series of procedures. So those series of procedures start with the power on self-test. So that starts with the power on self-test. Then the device will load the bootstrap, and then the operating system, and then it looks for a configuration file. If there's a configuration file stored, it will be stored in your NVRAM. Okay, that would be the file that it would load, for example, if your devices reboot for whatever reason. So if you work in a corporation and you have your devices configured, that's what you'll want to see, and you'll see the router or the switch name listed, and you'll see all the configuration files. But what if there's no config file? So in a lot of your exercises, you're configuring from scratch, and you'll know that because there won't already be a name listed. Okay, the router or the switch won't have a name. What you'll see is the prompt. This is, would you like to enter the initial configuration dialog? And the initial configuration dialog indicates that there is no startup file. Now, when your Cisco device is going through that entire procedure, or when it boots up from the beginning, you'll see some link lights. So I'm going to move the camera around in just a second and show you what the link lights look like, and I'm going to talk about how they change. So you should be able to see some solid green lights here. Now, these lights are solid green because the device has booted up and it is functioning properly. When the device is booting up initially, you'll see these lights begin as amber flashing lights and then move to green flashing lights, and you'll hear the fan in the device. It'll be a little bit louder than it is right now. You may not be able to hear that in the video, but once the device goes through that entire procedure, from the power on self-test into loading the operating system or providing the prompt, asking if you want to enter the initial configuration dialog box, once it goes through all that, the device will usually get a little quieter, and then you will see those lights change to solid green. So will they always be the solid green? Well, no. If you're having some errors, you'll see these lights change. So this is a good thing to get used to looking at if you're looking at your devices in person. If you walk by and see these as amber when they should be green, or if they're flashing, those are some things that may draw your attention. So one of the things that made me think about doing this video for you is what was in our last chapter. So in our last chapter, you were looking at your VLAN information, and you learned that when you're configuring your VLANs, if you wanted to erase the configuration, that you had to delete the VLAN database. Now, why do you need to delete the VLAN database if you're already going to be deleting the device by using the erase command? Well, the reason is those are independent. So deleting the startup configuration will delete just that. It won't delete your VLAN information. So if you erase the startup config, then when you go in and try to use the device again, and you haven't deleted the VLAN information, then that information will still be there. So you won't be able to ping between devices and then go in and do a show VLAN interface brief command and see that the existing VLANs are already there. So if you want to wipe a Cisco switch completely, then you will erase the startup config and delete the VLAN database. So with that being said, when you delete the VLAN database, I would suggest using the delete VLAN.dat command. The complete command is often listed, which is delete flash VLAN.dat. Well, I tell students not to get used to using that because we have a tendency to abbreviate our commands. For example, copy running config to startup config, we abbreviate as copy run start. If you do the same thing when you're deleting the VLAN database and abbreviate it, then you would type delete flash. Well, I've seen people type delete flash. So guess what happens? The device will ask you if you want to confirm this. You say yes, and then it deletes your entire operating system from the device. So instead of seeing the green lights like you saw, you would see flashing amber lights. Okay, so that's usually the first indication when I walk into a room and students have been doing one of these labs and there's flashing amber lights, they've deleted the operating system. Okay. The link lights are very important, and they're just a low-level, easy indicator that something is not performing correctly. For example, if you walk by, a set of servers and, one of the hard drives has died, there would be, you may see link lights. That would be something else that you might encounter. So getting used to just giving a quick glance over on link lights is very beneficial in networking and in troubleshooting as well. So I wanted to mention that to you also. So we have various devices here, and again, we have some older devices and we have some newer devices. If you're looking at each of these, I'm going to take a closer view here. So I'm going to turn the camera around. So these are your routers, and you'll see up close. I'm not sure if you can see because of the glare, but you see we have wicks here. These are the serial links. So when you're looking at that in a packet tracer, this is what they actually look like. Okay. You see you have console ports. You have some gigabit ports, you have USB ports. Your switches, if you're looking at layer 2 switch, you have fast Ethernet ports and you have gigabit ports. Some of these are power over Ethernet, which means you can plug a device into those and it will provide power to the device. Okay. Now, if you're looking at the Cisco routers, notice we have a power switch. So this power switch allows you to turn the device off and on. On these older devices, the 2960 series switches, there is no power device. So when someone says they're rebooting a switch, they literally just pull the power plug on it. And then you plug it back in. There is no on-off switch. So this is just a short video. Like I said, it's a little bit different, but I kind of wanted to give you just a quick overview of what these devices look like in person. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Let me know, and I'll be glad to try to answer those for you.